This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com or, of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by cinematographer Mathew Rudenberg, whose work includes The Kroll Show, Die Hart, and more recently, Zoey 102, just to name a few. Welcome to the show, Mathew.
Hello, good to be here.
I do have to say I love Die Hart and The Kroll Show. Both are great fun. But I want to talk to you about Zoey 102 today. So how did you get involved with that project?
Right. Well, I was actually shooting Die Hart in Atlanta, which was a lot of fun. And then I got a text message from Nancy, telling me that she had, she wouldn't tell me too much about it. She did tell me who the writers were, which are Maddie and Monica, this writing duo I worked with before on another show called Drama Club. And, they're super good writers, and they're also like very visually ambitious and inventive. So, before even reading it, I knew that they were going to have like an interesting take on this, romantic comedy. So she sent me the script and I read it, and, it is, it's very much a classic romantic comedy, but there's a lot of opportunities for some very fun, visual play in it. And Nancy was, very clear. We wanted to try to like find ways to really elevate this and to like find like cool moments to, use visuals to amplify and tell a story. And I do kind of enjoy romantic comedies. Like the classic one I always think of is My Best Friend's Wedding, which was shot by Laszlo Kovacs, who shot Easy Rider. And it's, this beautiful widescreen filmic thing. So, kind of my thought is like, how do I, take that classic romantic comedy look and create like a contemporary version, but with like a lot of energy and inventiveness.
So what were some of the areas that you got to play with then?
Well, one of the key elements that's very cool in the film is the main character Zoe works for a reality TV show, and in particular, the crescendo of the film is she goes to her best friend wedding, and at the same time is trying to manage this reality TV show, and the sequence on the page it's great, but it's rapidly cutting back and forth between these totally different scenarios. And so, my first thought was we really need to find a way to clearly define the difference between these two moments visually, like in an instant, so the audience is never confused as to, where they are. And so that was, a fun opportunity. And one of the things we wanted to do, like Nancy was very clear to me, is we didn't want to make like a bad looking reality TV show. Because, if you think about it, reality shows, the very talented people make reality shows, and they're, spend a huge amount of like effort and skill and experience making them look very good. So we didn't want to like make it look like a bad reality show. We wanted to make it look like a good reality show shot on like fancy cameras. But we did get to do, some fun differentiation things. The one thing I really liked, which I pitched to Paramount and I was worried they wouldn't go for, was actually playing with changing the aspect ratio. I kind of call it the reverse Nolan, because, Christopher Nolan will go widescreen for the big impressive moments. Well, the approach I took is that TV is full frame, right? It's 16:9, and movies, traditional classic movies like we're talking about are widescreen. So for the majority of our film, we embraced this 2:3:9 aspect ratio. But then when we cut into the reality show, we cut to full frame, and, Paramount, gave us their blessing to just, go ahead and make that aspect ratio change, which I think, is a lot of fun. And I like, playing with it, just like you play with a comic book, right? You have different panels depending on what part of the story you're telling.
I've been a camera person for 30 years, and I fell in love with cinema. I heard there was free film school in France, and I wanted to get into the French film school. I really didn't know anything at the time, but I knew at least how to take pictures. So I said, I'll try for the image department. And then when I miraculously got into the French film school, I fell in love with working with the camera. You're following what's going to be in the movie. So that immediacy that the camera allows is what I loved from the beginning. I'm Kirsten Johnson, and this is my course about documentary cinematography.
And so just to be clear, you also shot this on IMAX? Like Nolan?
65 millimeter feet
Yeah.
film. Not for this one. We used the Alexa Mini large format, which is a great
Okay.
camera.
So, and what the other thing I noticed in that, in the finale part of the film, is the color schemes also shift. Like, because each location sort of has a look to it. So, how did you guys figure out the way things were going to look for each scene?
Right. Well, I mean, that also ties, into the separation. Like, I really, wanted the film to be, I wanted the, film to have a bit of a magical realism to it, and to be a place where, as the viewer watched, they're taken back to, a lot of people watch this in their childhood. I want them to sort of go back to this magical, safe, happy place. So, I wanted the world of Zoey to be warm and soft and filmic and cozy. And so, we did a lot with lighting. We used tungsten lights a lot, and candles, and just warm feeling throughout. And then diffusion and soft lenses, and even we added some filmic grain to it to really build this kind of cinematic look. And on set, I would always be yelling at my DIT, sunny Malibu, more sunny Malibu. And then, for the reality show, I wanted to go totally the opposite route and have that feel, kind of cold and alienating, because she's working in a place that she's, struggling to be accepted, and is kind of looked down upon by the boss, who's, played, is a very funny character. And so for that, I really embraced like blues and purples, and and then in that reality show mode, we really went into the LED and the neon and these like very artificial light sources, as opposed to the natural, tungsten and candles. And then we had to like really blow it out to make these reality shows feel as big as a real reality show, with all the moving lights and the color chases and all kinds of like fun toys to make it feel big. But I think the color palette also helps differentiate the two.
Now, you were talking about how, like, you wanted that you were working with the DIT to get the Malibu look, and then after that sort of finale where she sort of messes up things at the wedding and the things go wrong at the reality show, there's sort of like the post non-wedding wedding. Was
Right.
that sort of a continuation of that Malibu look, or is it, because it feels more like it's because it's nighttime, it feels almost,
Right.
I don't want to say candle lit because it obviously wasn't, but like
Right.
more of like I guess romantic look to it.
Right. No, you're completely correct. I mean, that was the the lowest brightness I think we went, overall, for the film, because we wanted it to be, kind of soft and intimate. So we really, there were like some candles, and there were also, hanging lanterns, and Christmas lights that our production designer Jeremy Castle, decorated the set with. And we played with the look a bit, and we just felt that like the more external lights we added, it made it feel more artificial. And the more we relied on lights that were built into the set, it just felt more organic and natural. And this, it kind of fed into something that Nancy and I talked about from the beginning, which is, she wanted to have, the freedom to be very fluid and mobile with the camera. So, we did a lot of work to bring to motivate, the lighting with practical sources, or to build, practical sources into the set. Like there at the school, we used, a combination of Christmas lights and lamps built into the set and so forth. And then other places like the reception dinner is a good one. We had to, find the right kind of hanging chandeliers with like tungsten filament bulbs and little glass panels that we could hang over this table, and then we put candles along it, with all these reflections and lights, so that when we came to shoot it, we didn't need to do much at all to add any lighting on the ground. We could just float the camera around the table, and they were all keyed very nicely by these existing sources. So and so we just sort of had to embrace what those sources of feel it gave to the location.
Now, what I'm wondering if there's like a particular scene that was really difficult for you to execute, but you're really happy with the outcome.
Right. When I always think of the most challenging one, and which had like a great result, was the sunset scene after the wedding has failed, and they're sitting on the beach, because we actually shot this on the East Coast. So, we shot on an East Coast winter for a West Coast summer. So, we're always chasing that sunny feel and that sunlight. And, that particular scene we had to shoot at sunrise, for the sun to rise over the water instead of set there. So so that was the challenge, was to reverse it in that sense. And we got there, we set up before dawn, and we set up the dolly and line everything up. And a great idea is like, we should just roll a couple of takes for safety before the sun comes up. And so we rolled a couple of takes, and the sky really just had this incredibly beautiful like blue and this patch of magenta in the sky that was absolutely gorgeous. And what happened is, when the sun came up, it was a little cloudy. We didn't get that ball of sun on the horizon. It was a soft sunrise, actually, which was pretty. But we were looking at the playback, and we were like, well, the shot we shot before sunrise was much prettier. So then I had to go and match the close-ups to a pre-dawn look, where it was very blue and cold. So, we broke out the maxi brutes, the old tungsten 9 lights, and, then added more orange and magenta to those, and then, color balanced, daylight daylight, so that tungsten, so everything would go very blue, and then had to match the close-ups to it. But I think it was the right choice, and it really worked out in the end. And it's kind of fun, as I was talking about, to use as classical film strategies. Like a lot of the classical cinematographers would key with tungsten in daylight to create that warm look. So it was a fun trick to pull off in the spirit of the show to and match it, and I think it worked out well.
So just so I got that right, you shot in the East in the winter for summer in the West. Those poor
Exactly.
actors.
Yeah, definitely. It was. I mean, there's such a great crew there in Wilmington that like it was great. And we made some changes that I think again worked out for the best. Like we moved the wedding from an exterior to the interior, and I can't imagine a different place than that like warm wooden barn with a higher platform for Audrey to be singing on. Like it just when you embrace your limitations, I think sometimes it opens up opportunities that you might not have anticipated.
So how did the look change when you got into the color suite?
Well, I really had, a fantastic colorist, Ian Vertivec, who I've actually worked with several times before at Light Iron. And, we, we added some things. I mean, I think the biggest thing he brought to the table was in helping I mean, obviously the overall look, he did a fantastic job, but one thing that he added was with the video segments. As I said, he added grain to the filmic segments, and then in the video segments, we actually denoised it to remove grain to make it as clean as possible, and then added like a sharpening that no one uses because it looks too video-like. Everyone uses this like contrast sharpening, and we use this edge sharpening that like kind of looks video-y. So, he added that onto it. He added a lot of color separation, which is something, just in general that I think he is a master at, and that, at times, I think on location when, you're in the shoot, you're like, making it more monochromatically, warm. And then, with him, he was able to really like dig in and bring out these like differing colors. And just add the subtlety and nuance to it that I think turned out beautifully.
Now, I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
Right now, I mean, I don't know that I have a guilty pleasure per se. I do like animation. I've really been enjoying and rewatching Invincible, and they're finally bringing out their new season, and it's like it's kind of like a twisted take on the Saturday morning cartoon, and so I like cartoons because they're such a stylized approach to reality, and I think it's kind of interesting to watch what people do when they aren't limited or working within the framework of building on what exists and turning it into something else, but in when instead they can create anything they want. And I think changing frame sizes, for example, I remember seeing first in this old cartoon called Samurai Jack, where they would like constantly mess with the aspect ratio as they were telling the story, and they got the freedom to do these weird angles. And that's something I like to see what crazy ideas they come up with and find interesting ways to create. Because for me, it's always interesting when you can take something that's stylized and unreal and bring it into filmmaking, because I think that when you break it down to its most basic elements of like composition and color, you can use those tools in any project to express things through the pictures.
So were you a fan of the Invincible graphic novel originally before the animation?
I never actually read that one. But I do enjoy like indie graphic novels, and I got to do one project that I was very proud of that was based on a very strange like indie graphic novel called Generous Bosom. And we made this film called Ultrasound, which was like an indie sci-fi, very dark and like mysterious. It's like a story about hypnosis where you don't know what's real or what's not, and kind of Nolan-esque again. And that was kind of a dream come true, to take this like weird graphic novel and then turn the panels into pictures. And it played at Tribeca, and and I think it's I really I love working in comedy, but I also love working in different genres. And when there's an opportunity to do something weird and dark like horror or sci-fi, I always embrace that as well. And it's just nice to create all these different images and experiment with different things and find the right look for a project and build it based on what the story tells you.
Oh, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for our show for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, or of course on Instagram at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs.